You're listening to the Study Legal English podcast, helping lawyers and law students become fluent in legal English. For more information, visit studylegalenglish.com. Hello and welcome to the Study Legal English podcast. I'm your host Louise and today's episode is all about TOLES. TOLES stands for the Test of Legal English Skills, and I'm going to be covering 4 main points in this episode. Firstly, what is TOLES? Secondly, how can it help you? Thirdly, how can you prepare for it? And fourthly, where can you take it? So before I get started, let me remind you that Podcast Lite and Pro members can access the transcript to this episode over on the studylegalenglish.com website. If you want to get ahead with your legal English, get access to transcripts as a Lite member, and as a Pro member, get access to transcripts, vocabulary lists, quizzes, self-study courses, and much more, head over to studylegalenglish.com/pricing to sign up and join a growing community of legal English language learners dedicated to improving their legal English. So why am I talking about TOLES? Well, my listeners, I know that quite a lot of you are in the Facebook Legal English group. Some of you follow me on Instagram, so you will have seen that I've actually recently become a registered TOLES centre. So Study Legal English is now a TOLES registered centre. It means that I am certified to run training for TOLES and to administer all of the TOLES exams. So I'm super pleased about this, and therefore I've launched some brand new TOLES courses. I'm running online courses to prepare for the TOLES exam during July and August and October and November in 2022. And these courses cover a wide range of legal topics, including business, company, contract law, and vocabulary. They're a great way to learn a huge amount of legal language. And at the end, you can take the TOLES exam and you get a TOLES certificate that's valid for life. You did hear me correctly there, my listeners. Yes, when you get the TOLES certificate, it's then valid for life. It doesn't expire, so that's quite a good investment, I would say. Now, included in all of my TOLES courses, you do get a copy of the excellent textbook, the Lawyer's English Language Coursebook, and the TOLES exam. So you get the course, you get the materials, all of the materials that you need to study for the course, as well as the TOLES exam. Now, these courses are a fantastic way for you to improve your legal English, to meet other legal professionals and law students, and really just learn in a super fun environment. I guarantee that if you join me on one of these courses, you will develop your confidence in speaking legal English, and we're going to have a lot of fun together. But there's more. I'm also running a face-to-face Study Legal English TOLES Winter School in December and January this year. That is going to take place right here where I am in the beautiful Italian city of Lecco, where I live. Lecco is a stunning city. It's on Lake Como in the north of Italy, and in the winter it's very beautiful. It's surrounded by snow on the mountains, and there's a lovely magical Christmas market and light show in the historic centre. It's a perfect place to study, and I promise you that this course will give you a really unique experience where you can make new friends, improve your legal English, and also participate in some unforgettable cultural activities. So come along. I'm looking forward to meeting you and helping you take your legal English to the next level. All of the information with exact details can be found over at studylegalenglish.com/courses. But let me tell you about an offer that I've got on at the moment. Currently, I'm running an offer until 31st of July, where you can get 15% off all of my teacher-led courses. So that means you can get 15% discount if you sign up to one of the online teacher-led TOLES courses that I'll be running, as well as 15% off of that Study Legal English TOLES Winter School if you want to join me right here in Italy. All you have to do is head over to studylegalenglish.com/courses. You'll find a link to a survey, fill it out, and you're going to get a code that you can apply to all of those courses. And There's another thing. Because I love helping you out with your legal English, if you register for one of these teacher-led courses, you will also get access to Podcast Pro membership for 1 month. That means that you will get access to all of the Podcast Pro courses on my site for 1 month. You can study at your own pace and earn course certificates for the following courses: Networking for Lawyers, and the English Legal System course, which contains modules about the legal profession, sources of law, courts and tribunals, alternative dispute resolution, criminal procedure, and civil procedure. So that's a really great addition and great for you to self-study before you then take a course with me as your teacher. Now, by the time you listen to this episode, if you're not listening to it right away when it's first published, the courses may have booked up. So if this is the case, just go ahead and add yourself to the waiting list. You can go to studylegalenglish.com/courses to register your place on the course or to register on the waiting list. So now let's get started. What is TOLES? TOLES means Test of Legal English Skills. The TOLES exams were established in the year 2000. They were introduced by a woman called Catherine Mason, and they're jointly owned by Cambridge Law Studio and Global Legal English Limited. So who are the TOLES exams for? The TOLES exams are appropriate for non-native English-speaking law students and legal professionals. That means they're appropriate if you're a paralegal, a lawyer, a judge, a translator, interpreter, anyone who needs legal English for their work or studies. And you might be thinking, well, why should I take a TOLES exam? Well, the TOLES exams are the leading exams for non-native English-speaking lawyers and law students and legal professionals to prove their level of legal English. Once you've taken the TOLES exam, you get a certificate which is valid for life and it doesn't expire. But it's not just about the exam, it's about preparing yourself for that and the language that you learn and the skills that you learn so that you can actually go and actually take the exam. So the language and the skills that you learn preparing for and taking a TOLES exam can help you have a career in an international law firm or help you build confidence in dealing with international clients. You'll learn things about, for example, contract vocabulary, how to explain particular clauses, or as well, particular legal processes about starting a claim, for example. As well as that, it could help if you're looking for a job, if you want to get a promotion, or perhaps you want to get hired at another law firm, and you really need to show your level of legal English. It can also be useful in your university applications if you're thinking of studying in the UK, for example. So let's look at the different TOLES exams because, my listeners, there are actually 3 TOLES levels currently. So that's the foundation, the higher and the advanced. You can choose to take any of these exams. You don't necessarily need to take them, one after the other. However, I would actually recommend you begin with the foundation exam and then move on to the higher and then on to the advanced, and you do take them in order, so that you build on the knowledge that you've learnt in each stage without leaving gaps in your language, because each exam does build on material from the previous one. So let's look at the different levels in more detail. Okay, so the first level is, of course, the foundation level. This is for students with a beginner to intermediate level of legal English. The exam tests your reading, writing, and legal vocabulary and grammar. It takes 90 minutes to complete. The second level is TOLES Higher, and this is for intermediate to upper intermediate legal English students. Again, it tests your reading, writing, legal vocabulary, and grammar, and it also takes 90 minutes to complete. So you might be thinking, hang on a minute, Louise, those sounded very similar. What do I actually learn for this test and how are they different? Well, the TOLES Foundation and Higher exams do test legal vocabulary for a wide range of legal topics. For example, the legal profession, the language of banking law, the language of contracts, the language of employment law, the language of tort, the language of business law, the language of company law, as well as modern legal writing. So those are the topics which are involved, and those topics are focused on in all of the TOLES exams. But As I mentioned, what's the difference? What's the difference between foundation and higher? Well, the higher exam tests more advanced grammar and sentence constructions for starters. For example, you should be able to understand the passive voice and use collocations correctly. So I'm going to give you an example. Do you know which one of these is correct? The parties entered to a contract, the parties entered a contract, or the parties entered into a contract? That is an example of some of the language that could be tested in the higher exam. Now, the answer is the parties entered into a contract. So correct usage of phrasal verbs, of prepositions, is a clear sign that you're actually using legal language correctly. And prepositions are actually really, really important, especially when you get to, for example, writing contracts and you really need to be using that language accurately. And of course, if you're explaining things to clients, prepositions certainly do matter. So in preparing for the TOLES foundation and then the higher, you learn gradually to use these appropriately, and they'll give you much more confidence in using those correctly in reality, in your real life. So moving on to the TOLES Advanced. The TOLES Advanced is for upper intermediate to advanced legal English students. The exam includes reading, writing and drafting skills, and it takes 120 minutes to complete. The area of legal language is the same as the previous exams, with a focus on commercial areas, and it covers yet again more advanced grammar. For example, do you know how to use the irregular verb to bear correctly? Or what about to seek correctly? These two verbs are often used in legal English. They collocate with specific words, and using them correctly is certainly important to be able to speak as a legal professional. So if I said to you, the claimant sought for damages in court, is that wrong or right? What does it mean? How would you correct it if it's not correct? What voice is being used? Is that sentence in the active or passive voice? Answers to those questions you would learn in preparing for the advanced exam. And I'll tell you the answer. The answer is that sentence was wrong. If I said the claimant sought for damages in court, that is not correct. Why? Well, because to seek means to look for. We don't use the preposition for with to seek. We just say to seek. So in that case, the correction would be the claimant sought damages in court, meaning that the claimant went to court to try to get damages. And it's written in the active voice. If we were to transfer it into the passive voice, we would have to say damages were sought by the claimant in court. All right, so we're going to take a short break here, and we'll be back in just a moment to find more about TOLES. If you'd like to improve your legal English but don't know where to start, why not take the Study Legal English Level Test? This is a short online assessment which tests your legal English vocabulary, collocations, prepositions and grammar. You can take the assessment today and you'll immediately be sent a report detailing your level. The tailored report gives you advice on areas you need to improve, how to improve, and which TOLES exam you could take. Find out your legal English level today. Visit studylegalenglish.com/pricing to get started right away. All right, so welcome back, and let's continue talking about TOLES. So, how can you prepare for a TOLES exam? I'm going to give you 3 ways. Firstly, easy self-study. There are books available to self-study for TOLES, for example, the Lawyer's English Language Coursebook for TOLES Foundation and Higher. And for the advanced exam, you can find the Advanced Legal English book. I've actually made a video and podcast episode reviewing the Lawyer's English Language coursebook. So if you search for the Study Legal English podcast episode 102, you will find it. You'll find it on YouTube, on your podcast app, wherever you listen to the podcast. Now, the advantage of this method of self-study is that it's cheap. So if you're on a budget, then that's quite a good option. You can do it at your own pace, of course. That can be a good thing because you might do it very, very quickly. Could also be bad because, I don't know, if you're very busy, you might not be that motivated to study. But the disadvantage is that you will lack guidance. You may not know if you are making mistakes or not. And quite honestly, in my own language learning, I always prefer to combine self-study with studying with a teacher who can guide me, who can tell me where I'm going wrong, and also just to keep me motivated. So that does lead me on to my second method. You might want to study one-to-one with a teacher. Now, it's not always easy to find a legal English teacher, so I recommend that you can try out a website called italki. If you go to go.italki.com/study legal English, you can get a voucher, a discount on the website italki, and you can try to search for a legal English teacher there. Alternatively, you can check out the EULITA Trainer Directory. That's the European Legal English Teachers Association Trainer Directory. It's available at eulita.org, EULETA.org. And as well, I do conduct one-to-one training. And if you go to studylegalenglish.com/courses, scroll down on that page, you're going to find information about my one-to-one training. You can get in touch with me directly for professional TOLES training. Now, the pro of studying one-to-one is that you can get detailed support and you can progress very quickly. But the problem is that firstly, it can be expensive. And secondly, you may miss the interaction with other students that you can learn from. In fact, I don't know about you, but I've certainly studied in language groups before, and it can be really helpful because sometimes your peers may ask questions that you didn't think of. They might make mistakes that you didn't realize were mistakes, and you can just learn from each other. And of course, often have fun learning with others. So that does bring me on to my final way to prepare, which would be to take a TOLES preparation exam course. There are quite a few providers out there who do run courses. Just do a quick Google search and you will for sure find some TOLES exam preparation courses. As I mentioned, I am now running TOLES preparation courses through my site. If you'd like to secure your place on one of my courses, go to studylegalenglish.com/courses. I guarantee you're going to learn a lot. You're going to be motivated, and we will have fun learning and getting ahead with our legal English. I should mention to pay attention when you're looking for a course, if you choose to go and search for another course, that firstly, check that the centre is TOLES certified. Secondly, that the TOLES exam is included in the course price, because you don't want to do a course and then at the end of it, realise that you have to then register for the exam yourself and the price is additional. So this does bring me on to my final point, which is where can you take the TOLES exams? You can take the TOLES exams online, but only on specific dates. You can also take a paper exam at registered centres, but this is currently being phased out in favour of the online exam. So again, it's a really great thing. You can go ahead, you can study at home, you can take the exam yourself, but bear in mind that the exam costs around £200, a bit more than £200 to take. So if you want to be sure to do well, I would be a bit cautious and maybe book yourself on a course to make sure that you make the most out of it and get the best possible outcome. Great. So that brings me to the end of this episode. What a whirlwind. I've included lots of information there about TOLES, so I hope you found it useful. I hope you learned something new. But maybe you've got more questions about TOLES that I didn't answer. If you do, if you'd like to know anything about the TOLES exams, do get in touch. Send me an email to louise@studylegalenglish.com or connect with me over in the Study Legal English Facebook group. You can find that by searching for the Study Legal English Facebook group on Facebook, or on Instagram. My name is @legalenglisher. And I often post tips on legal English which can be helpful for those preparing for TOLES, as well as just generally learning legal English. So thanks for listening and see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Study Legal English podcast. If you really want to get ahead, why not become a member and gain access to many learning resources? Visit studylegalenglish.com/pricing.